We were originally milking out of a natural vent barn, but we chose to go with a cross vent barn for our new production. The major deciding factors on going a cross vent versus a natural vent is just traveling around and looking at other people's overall designs, but also Dr. Monty Baumer, he was a key asset in designing, and as well as the deciding factor of going with a cross vent.
Because of the footprint of construction that we were looking at, we chose to go with a cross vent. Seems like the cross vents, we can definitely put a lot more air and fresh air through the barn compared to a natural ventilated where we're running a lot of basket fans, just trying to push hot air around. The one scheme we always want to look at when it comes to fresh air on the cows is we just want to be able to bring a lot of fresh air into the barn all the time.
There's a couple of reasons in baffles why we didn't go with them. Part of it was the appearance in the barn with the natural light. Second reason was the dead air in the winter. I just don't think you can get the air out of those baffles well enough without all your fans running. And then usually you got to clean those baffles at least once a year. I like the idea of being able to exhaust the air in the winter out of the upper row of fans for winter ventilation.
When we start looking at the reason to eliminate the baffles, it's always like we spend a lot of money on baffles for only a few months out of the year. A lot of those barns tend to be a little darker, I think, or we have to have more lighting in there. For a couple months out of the year, yeah, baffles are great. We chose just to say, hey, we have to run a few more fans because we want the same airspeed. So we made the choice of economics to rather run fans than we would put baffles in. So for the couple times a year when it's really hot, we just have to have more fans running. I think the light in here makes it a more open barn. I think it's more comfortable from the cows, and there's nothing wrong with baffles. They make great airflow on cows with baffles too. And this was just kind of our choice.
Mike went with a strategy of 50-inch fans above 72-inch fans. Partly because we're not doing baffles, we do need to double stack fans. In this case, Bayland built a special shelf on the outside of the barn which allowed us to run those fans continuous. 72-inch fans are our most efficient, most economical fan in terms of the amount of air that they move and also the CFM per watt that they're able to produce. By being such a large fan, we're able to move air at a very efficient rate. So getting as many of those fans in was an important part of this strategy, and then we filled the gap with the 50-inch fan.
Bayland actually built the shelves themselves that the fans sit into to optimize how close we could get the fans while getting as many on the side of the barn as we could. At the bottom row, we run a 72-inch, whereas at the top we run a 50-inch. We find 50 inches is sufficient for in the winter time. 72s never turn on in the winter, it's more than suffices. 72s will kick on at the bottom to ensure we have optimal wind flow throughout the summer. When it comes to the overall maintenance of the fans themselves, the actual bearings that Artex has utilized within their fans have been optimal for the user on the farm themselves, with only having to grease every 2,000 hours and the grease actually staying within the bearing. I find that very valuable. Having to only go through every 3 months compared to your typical once a month or grease flying all over the place. We have had no bearings go out. We check them regularly. It doesn't appear any bearings are even about to go out, and going out a year and a half, so that's very ideal.
We knew going into it without baffles, we were aiming for that 5 miles an hour. And the tests we've run were 4.5 to 5 miles an hour. So we've kind of hit our target and it's performing how we wanted it to perform. Part of that's back to the cow comfort, and if I think if we can maintain 4, 5, 6 mile an hour wind with the sprinklers, you're gonna have a very comfortable animal.
Automation and control panels, the one they went with controls the curtains and the fans both.
On this particular farm, Mike selected the AutoFlex, which is our higher end controller. It's computer driven, so we have a software pack that Mike's able to select different parameters on his system. He can run it based on temperature, he can run it based on humidity. We can do a lot of things that Mike can select to allow him to run this system however he would like.
The overall soaking system in the barn, we went with a gallon per minute soaker for the bigger drop to really optimize minimal drift.
And so as we stand here, you can see the misters come on, and that way we get very little overflow coming from the misters into feed lanes or anything like that by keeping it close to the cow's back.
Why I can stand here and say that we wouldn't change anything with our cooling system is just the response we've seen in breeding, milk production, and stall utilization on hot days. The cows are comfortable, and you let the cows tell you if their needs are being met.
And in this barn, to be honest, I've never seen any bunching of cattle anywhere. So I think our cow cooling seems to be pretty effective. We monitor temperatures on cows once in a while on the hottest days just to see how cool they're staying. And they're staying spot on right now.
The overall design of the system and working with Bayland and our techs was key. They were guys that have built cross vents before, so they were able to bring a lot to the table on overall quality of what would be represented in a cross vent on our farm. And having those individuals at the table allowed us to understand what we were getting at quality as well as overall efficiency level of a cross vent barn.